Hello, Teddy lovers. As you may have noticed, almost every video has been removed from our channel because they didn't follow the current guidelines. We need to make sure we can rejoin the program. I've been reading the comments on our previous videos, and I know it can be annoying that I give my opinions in the middle of the stories, but there's nothing else we can do right now. We have to adjust to the current guidelines. I truly admire every single one of you who's supporting us during this tough time. Just stay with us. We have many more stories coming your way. Let us know what you think in the comments, and without further ado, let's get right into the story. It's titled,
When I was pregnant with twins and already in pain, my own sister falsely accused me of stealing $160,000 from my dad's in front of the whole family. When I tried to defend myself, she slammed my head into the wall mirror, shattering it. Glass cut my face and I fell to the floor. My mom rushed over, but instead of helping me, she kicked my pregnant belly hard multiple times. My water broke from the impact, and I started bleeding. Dad added, "Thieves don't deserve to give birth." My father grabbed me by the hair and dragged me outside through the broken glass and threw me out into the street. But I warned them through the pain, "I'll be back and you'll all regret this." After I gave birth to my twins in the hospital and recovered, the revenge I delivered destroyed their whole world. The evening started like any other family dinner at my parents' house. I was 32 weeks pregnant with twins, my back constantly aching and my ankles swollen beyond recognition. Getting up from the couch required strategic planning and usually involved gripping whatever furniture was nearby. My husband Tyler had to work late that night, so I'd driven myself over, thinking it would be a quiet meal with my parents and my older sister Vanessa. I should have known better. Vanessa had been acting strange for weeks, avoiding eye contact during phone calls and giving me one-word answers whenever I asked about her life. Our relationship had always been competitive, but lately something felt different. There was an edge to her voice that I couldn't quite place, a bitterness that seemed to grow stronger each time we spoke. The dining room felt unusually tense when I walked in. My mother Constance was setting the table with jerky movements, her lips pressed into a thin line. My father Gerald sat at the head of the table, his jaw clenched tight as he stared at nothing in particular. Vanessa stood by the window, arms crossed, her expression cold and calculating. "What's going on?" I asked, lowering myself carefully into a chair. The twins were particularly active that day, pressing against my ribs and making it difficult to breathe deeply. Nobody answered immediately. The silence stretched out uncomfortably, broken only by the clink of plates as Constance finished setting the table. My stomach twisted with something beyond the usual pregnancy discomfort. Something was very wrong. Vanessa turned from the window, her eyes hard. "You tell us," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "You're the one who's been stealing from this family." I blinked, genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," she snapped. "Bad savings account. $160,000 gone. And the bank records show the transfers came from someone with access to his account information." My mouth went dry. "You think I took it?" "We don't think," Gerald said, his voice low and dangerous. "We know. Who else would have had the opportunity? You were the one helping me with my banking last year, after I broke my wrist in that fall. You had all my information. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. I would never do that. I haven't touched your account since you recovered. Why would I even need to steal from you? Tyler and I are doing fine financially." Vanessa laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Really? Because from where I'm standing, you've been asking Mom and Dad for money constantly. New furniture for the nursery, maternity clothes, medical bills. It never ends with you. Those were gifts they offered." My voice rose, panic setting in. "I never demanded anything. And I certainly never stole anything." Constance slammed the serving dish onto the table. "How dare you lie to our faces? We have proof." "What proof?" I struggled to stand, my hands bracing against the table. "Show me this proof because I haven't done anything wrong." Vanessa pulled out her phone, advancing toward me with deliberate steps. "The bank showed Dad the IP address logs. The transfers were made from your house. That's impossible." My heart was racing now, the twins moving frantically inside me as if sensing my distress. "Let me see the actual records. Let me talk to the bank myself. There has to be a mistake." "There's no mistake," Gerald said, rising from his chair. His face was red with anger, veins standing out on his neck. "You betrayed this family. You betrayed me." I reached out toward him, desperate to make him understand. "Dad, please, I swear on my baby's lives I didn't take your money. Why won't you believe me?" "Because you're a liar and a thief," Vanessa hissed. She was right in front of me now, her face inches from mine. You've always been jealous of me, always trying to compete. But this time you went too far. I'm not competing with you. Tears were streaming down my face. I don't understand why you're doing this. Shut up. Vanessa's hand shot out, grabbing my shoulder. Just admit what you did. I tried to pull away, my balance precarious with the weight of the twins throwing me off center. Get your hands off me. Everything happened so fast. Vanessa's grip tightened, and she suddenly shoved me backward with shocking force. My feet tangled together as I stumbled, and my head slammed into the decorative mirror hanging on the dining room wall. The sound of shattering glass filled the air, and I felt sharp pain explode across my scalp and face. I fell hard, unable to catch myself. My hip hit the floor first, then my shoulder. Glass rained down around me, and I felt warm blood running down my cheek and neck. The pain was blinding. What worse was the terror gripping my chest as I thought about my babies. Mom, I gasped, looking up at Constance. She was standing right there, close enough to help. Help me, please. But she didn't reach down to pull me up. Instead, her face twisted with rage, and she stepped forward. Her foot connected with my stomach before I could even process what was happening. The kick landed directly on my swollen belly, and I screamed. No! Stop! I tried to curl around my stomach to protect the twins, but another kick came. And another. Each impact sent waves of agony through my body. Thieves don't deserve to give birth. Gerald's voice roared above me. I felt something give way inside me, a horrible warmth spreading between my legs. My water had broken, but it wasn't clear like it should have been. I could see blood pooling on the floor beneath me, mixing with the water and the tiny shards of glass. I'm bleeding, I whispered, my voice barely audible. The babies. Please, the babies. Gerald grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanking my head up. The pulling made fresh pain shoot through my scalp where the glass had cut me. He started dragging me across the floor, through the broken glass, toward the front door. I tried to grab onto furniture, onto anything, but my hands were slick with blood and couldn't find purchase. The glass on the floor tore at my clothes. My skin. Each inch felt like miles as he pulled me through the house. Dad, stop. You're killing them. I was sobbing now, barely able to form words through the pain and fear. You're killing your grandchildren. He didn't respond. The front door opened, and he dragged me down the porch steps. My body bumped over each one, sending fresh jolts of pain through me. Then he released my hair, and I collapsed onto the concrete driveway. Don't ever come back here, he spat. You're no daughter of mine. Through my blurred vision, I could see all three of them standing in the doorway, silhouetted by the light from inside. Vanessa had her arms crossed, looking satisfied. Constance's face was blank, emotionless. Gerald's chest heaved with angry breaths. Blood was everywhere now, soaking through my clothes, running down my legs. I could feel the contractions starting, violent and too soon. But I forced myself to look up at them, to lock eyes with each member of my family. I'll be back, I said, my voice shaking but clear. And you'll all regret this. Vanessa laughed. Get out of here before we call the police on you. The door slammed shut. I was alone in the darkness, lying on the cold concrete, bleeding and going into premature labor. I managed to pull my phone from my pocket with trembling hands. My fingers left bloody smears on the screen as I dialed Tyler. Baby, what's wrong? His voice held immediate concern. Hospital, I gasped. Need ambulance. Parents' house. The twins are coming. I don't remember much after that. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and urgent voices. Medical staff rushed around me, their faces grim as they assessed my injuries and the status of my pregnancy. Someone cleaned the glass from my hair and face, and 4 went into my arm. Tyler burst into the emergency room, his face white with panic. What happened? They won't tell me anything. I tried to explain, but another contraction hit, stealing my breath. A doctor leaned over me, her expression serious. We need to do an emergency cesarean section, she said. The babies are in distress, and you've lost a significant amount of blood. Do we have your consent? I nodded, unable to speak. Tyler gripped my hand as they wheeled me toward the operating room. The surgery felt like it lasted hours, though I know it was much faster. When I finally heard the first cry, weak but present, tears streamed down my face. Then the second cry came, stronger than the first. 2 girls, the doctor announced. They're small, but they're fighters. I caught only a glimpse of them before they were rushed to the NICU. Tiny, red-faced, perfect. My daughters. Despite everything that had happened, they were here. They were alive. The recovery was grueling. Multiple lacerations on my face and scalp required stitches, some of them deep enough that the doctors worried about scarring. My ribs were bruised from the kicks. The cesarean incision would take weeks to heal properly, but the worst injury was the one nobody could see, the complete destruction of my trust and my own family. Tyler barely left the hospital during those first 72 hours.
Teddy's thoughts. What the hell did I just read? Nah, this isn't even family drama anymore. This is straight up evil. Accusing you is one thing, but beating a pregnant woman carrying twins? Kicking your stomach, dragging you outside, saying that sick line? That's not anger. That's cruelty on another level. And Vanessa, she didn't just lie. She wanted that to happen. You can feel it. I'm not even thinking about forgiveness here. I'm thinking they don't deserve to ever see you or those kids again. Yeah, whatever revenge you're about to drop, I'm locked in.
He'd split his time between my room and the NICU, updating me constantly on how the twins were doing. His face showed the strain of nearly losing us all, dark circles under his eyes, and a tightness around his mouth that hadn't been there before. The police want to talk to you, he said on the third day, his voice careful. I told them you needed more time to recover, but they're insistent. They need your statement about what happened. My hands trembled as I adjusted the hospital bed to sit up straighter. The movement pulled at my incision, making me wince. I'll talk to them. I want to talk to them. 2 officers arrived that afternoon. The older one, Detective Harrison, had kind eyes that reminded me of my grandfather. His partner, Officer Mills, was younger and took notes while Harrison asked questions. Walk me through the entire evening, Harrison said gently. Start from when you arrived at your parents' house. I recounted every detail, my voice shaking when I described the mirror shattering, breaking completely when I got to the part about Constance kicking my stomach. Officer Mills stopped writing at several points, her expression flickering with poorly concealed disgust. Your mother kicked you while you were pregnant, Harrison clarified, as if he couldn't quite believe what he'd heard. Multiple times, I confirmed. She knew exactly what she was doing. They all did. Harrison exchanged a glance with Mills. And your father dragged you through the broken glass and threw you outside. Yes. He grabbed my hair and pulled me across the floor through all the shards, then down the porch steps and onto the driveway. I touched the bandages on my scalp unconsciously. The doctors had to remove glass fragments from my wounds. We'll need photographs of all your injuries, Mills said quietly, and copies of all medical records related to the assault and the premature delivery. You can have whatever you need, Tyler interjected. We want them prosecuted for what they did. Harrison nodded slowly. I have to ask, is there any possibility this was a misunderstanding? That emotions ran high and things escalated beyond what anyone intended. The question ignited something fierce in my chest. A misunderstanding is harsh words exchanged over dinner. This was premeditated violence against a pregnant woman. My sister accused me of something I didn't do, physically assaulted me, and my parents joined in. There's no misunderstanding here, Detective. There's only assault and attempted harm to my unborn children. Fair enough, Harrison said, making a note. We'll be following up with your family members to get their statements as well. After the officers left, Tyler sat on the edge of my hospital bed, careful not to jostle me. Your phone has been ringing nonstop, he said. Family members calling, wanting to know what happened. I haven't answered any of them. Good. I stared at the ceiling, exhaustion pulling at me. I don't want to talk to any of them right now. Your Aunt Lorraine left a voicemail. She sounded genuinely concerned, said she'd heard you were in the hospital, and wanted to make sure you were okay. Lorraine was my mother's younger sister, the only family member who'd ever called Constance out on her favoritism toward Vanessa. She'd always been kind to me, though we weren't particularly close. I'll call her back eventually, I said. Just not yet. The days blurred together. Medical staff came and went, checking my vitals, changing bandages, monitoring my recovery from the cesarean section. A plastic surgeon visited to discuss the facial lacerations, explaining that while most would heal well, a few might leave permanent scars. The one along your cheekbone is deep, Dr. Morrison explained, tracing a gloved finger near but not touching the wound. We'll do our best with the suturing technique, but you may want to consider scar revision surgery down the line. I didn't care about scars. Physical marks would heal or they wouldn't, but they were nothing compared to the invisible wounds my family had inflicted. Tyler brought my laptop to the hospital on day 5. I thought you might want to start documenting everything, he said. Dates, times, exact words, they said. It might help with a legal case. He was right. I opened a new document and began typing, forcing myself to relive every horrible moment in precise detail. The accusation, Vanessa's smugness, the false bank record she'd referenced, the violence that followed. Writing it down made it feel simultaneously more real and more surreal, as if I were documenting someone else's nightmare. The NICU allowed me to visit the twins once I could manage a wheelchair. Tyler pushed me down the long corridors, through the double doors into the quiet, beeping world where our daughters fought to grow stronger. Aria was in an incubator on the left, Luna on the right. They were so impossibly small, their skin almost transparent. Tiny tubes and wires monitoring everything. Patricia, the same nurse who'd encouraged me to get a lawyer, showed me how to reach through the incubator ports to touch them. Skin contact is important, Patricia explained. Even though you can't hold them yet, they can feel your touch. They know their mother is here. I place my hand gently on Aria's chest, feeling the rapid flutter of her heartbeat beneath my palm. Tears dripped onto my hospital gown as I whispered to her, promising her that she was safe now, that I would protect her and her sister from anyone who tried to hurt them. Luna was more active than her sister, her tiny fist punching at the air, as if already fighting the world. I touched her hand and her fingers immediately curled around my index finger, gripping with surprising strength. She's a fighter, Patricia said with a smile. Both of them are. 32 weekers usually do very well. They just need time to catch up. Leaving them was agony. I wanted to stay by their incubators constantly, to never let them out of my sight. But my body was still healing, still weak from the trauma and surgery. Tyler had to wheel me back to my room where I collapsed into bed, exhausted and aching. On day 7, I was finally discharged from the hospital. The twins would have to stay in the NICU for potentially several more weeks, but I was medically stable enough to recover at home. Walking out of the hospital without my babies felt fundamentally wrong, like leaving part of myself behind. Our house felt too quiet when we arrived. Tyler had cleaned up while I was hospitalized, but evidence of our previous life remained. The nursery we'd set up with 2 cribs, the changing table stocked with diapers and wipes, the rocking chair where I'd planned to nurse them. I stood in the doorway of the nursery, staring at the empty cribs, and felt rage building in my chest alongside the grief. My daughters should be here. They should have had 8 more weeks safe inside me, growing and developing. Instead, they were fighting to breathe in plastic boxes because my own family had attacked me. We're going to make them pay, Tyler said from behind me. His voice carried a cold determination I'd never heard before. Every single one of them. The next morning, despite Tyler's protests that I needed more rest, I called the bank that held Gerald's savings account. After being transferred 3 times, I finally reached someone in their fraud department. I need to speak with someone about fraudulent transfers from my father's account, I explained. I was falsely accused of stealing the money, but I have reason to believe someone else accessed his account. The representative, a woman named Teresa, put me on hold for several minutes before returning. I see the account in question had multiple unauthorized transfers, totaling $160,000. The account holder filed a report, but the investigation was closed when he identified the person responsible. He identified the wrong person, I said firmly. I need to know what IP address those transfers came from, what device was used, and the exact dates and times. I'm sorry, but we can't release that information to you unless you're listed on the account or have legal authorization. Then I'll get legal authorization, I said. Expect a subpoena. Tyler had already been researching attorneys. He'd made a list of 3 who specialized in both criminal defense and civil litigation, figuring we'd need someone who could handle multiple aspects of what was clearly going to be a complex legal battle. Douglas Walsh's office was in a sleek downtown building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He was in his late 40s with silver threading through his dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that miss nothing. I showed him the photographs of my injuries, still shocking even though they were beginning to heal. I gave him the medical records documenting the assault and its consequences. I told him everything: the accusation, the violence, the premature birth. Douglas listened without interrupting, his expression growing progressively grimmer. When I finished, he sat back in his leather chair and steepled his fingers. This is one of the most clear-cut assault cases I've encountered, he said. The medical evidence alone is damning, but the theft accusation complicates things. If we're going to clear your name completely and go after them legally, we need to prove you didn't take that money.
Teddy's thoughts. Oh my God, I can feel my blood boiling just reading this. Like, I am literally shaking for you. This isn't just family conflict. This is pure, unhinged sociopathic behavior. Your sister accused you of a crime you didn't commit, physically attacked you, and your parents, your own parents, joined in, kicked your pregnant belly, dragged you through broken glass, and you still had to fight for your babies in the NICU after that. And now you're sitting there piecing together the fraud, documenting every single thing while physically and emotionally shattered. You're not just surviving, you're meticulously building a case against them. That's some hardcore warrior energy.
I insisted. I believe you. But we need evidence. You mentioned your sister showed your father some kind of proof. Bank records, she said, showing the transfers came from my IP address. We need to get our hands on those records and examine them thoroughly. If the transfers did originate from your home network, someone either hacked you remotely or had physical access to your computer. He paused. Who has keys to your house? The question hit me like cold water. Tyler and me and Vanessa. We gave her a spare for emergencies. Douglas leaned forward. Does your house have security cameras? Yes. Front door, back door, and driveway. They record a cloud storage. I need access to those recordings immediately. If your sister used her key to enter your home during the time frame when those transfers occurred, we have her. Tyler stayed by my side constantly, his anger at my parents growing with each day. We should press charges, he kept saying. They assaulted you. They could have killed you and our daughters. Not yet, I told him. First, I need to understand what really happened with that money. The twins, whom we named Aria and Luna, had to stay in the NICU for 3 weeks. They were premature but healthy, gaining weight steadily. Every day I sat beside their incubators, watching them breathe, watching them grow stronger. And every day my resolve hardened. During one of my visits, a NICU nurse named Patricia struck up a conversation. She'd been caring for the twins and had noticed the scars on my face, the way I winced when I moved too quickly. Honey, I don't mean to pry, she said gently, but those injuries didn't come from a simple fall, did they? I found myself telling her everything. The accusation, the violence, the betrayal. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing more troubled with each detail. You need a lawyer, she said firmly, and you need to find out what really happened with that money. Because from what you're describing, someone set you up. She was right. The next day, I contacted an attorney named Douglas Walsh. He specialized in both family law and financial crimes, and after hearing my story, he took my case immediately. The first thing we need to do is get those bank records, Douglas said during our initial consultation. If the transfers were made from your IP address, someone either hacked your home network or physically used your computer. Do you have any home security cameras? I sat up straighter. Yes, we have cameras covering the front door, back door, and the driveway. They upload to cloud storage. Perfect. I'll need access to those recordings for the time period when the transfers occurred. It took 2 days to pull all the footage. Tyler and I sat with Douglas in his office, watching weeks of recordings on fast forward. Most of it was ordinary mail delivery, neighbors walking dogs, us coming and going from work. Then we found it. On 3 separate occasions during the time period when the money was transferred, Vanessa appeared on our doorstep. She knocked, waited, then looked around carefully before pulling out a key. Our spare key, the one we kept hidden in a fake rock by the flower pot. She has a key to your house. Douglas asked. We gave her one for emergencies, Tyler said, his voice tight with anger. She said she wanted to be able to check on things if we were out of town. We watched as Vanessa let herself in, staying for approximately 45 minutes each time. The timestamps matched almost perfectly with the bank transfers. She used your computer to make it look like you stole the money, Douglas said, making notes. This is fraud, identity theft, and given what happened afterward, conspiracy to commit assault. Can you prove it was her at the computer? I asked. We'll need to examine your computer's logs. But yes, we should be able to confirm someone accessed your father's bank account from your home network during the times she was in your house. Combined with this video evidence, we have a solid case. The investigation took 6 weeks. Douglas brought in a digital forensics expert who examined my computer thoroughly. Sure enough, the logs showed that someone had accessed my father's bank website using saved passwords, then initiated the transfers to an offshore account. The interesting thing, the forensics expert explained, is that whoever did this wasn't particularly sophisticated. They didn't use a VPN or take steps to hide their digital footprint. They relied entirely on the physical location to frame you. Because she knew my family would believe it was me without questioning the evidence, I said bitterly. Exactly. And look at this. He pulled up another screen. After the money was transferred to the offshore account, it sat there for 2 days. Then it was moved to another account. This one registered to a shell company. Wanna guess who's listed as the beneficial owner of that company? Vanessa, I breathed. Vanessa, he confirmed. She stole the money and framed you for it. The question is why? I thought back to the months before the accusation. Vanessa had been asking me about my finances, seeming very interested in how Tyler and I were managing with the twins on the way. She'd commented multiple times about how expensive babies were, how much medical care cost, how we probably need financial help. She was building a narrative, I told Douglas, making it seem like I was desperate for money, setting the stage so everyone would believe I had a motive. Why did she need the money? Tyler asked. Her husband makes good money, doesn't he? I pulled out my phone and started searching. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Her husband's company filed for bankruptcy 4 months ago, I said, staring at the article. They lost almost everything. Douglas smiled grimly. There's your motive. She needed money and decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Steal from your father and frame you, eliminating you as competition for any future inheritance. What do we do now? I asked. Now we go to the police. And then we go after all of them. Filing the police report felt surreal. The detective assigned to the case, a woman named Linda Ortega, listened carefully as I recounted everything. She examined the evidence Douglas had compiled, her expression growing darker. This is one of the clearest cases of assault and fraud I've seen, she said. We'll be pressing charges against your sister for the theft and fraud. As for your parents, the assault charges are complicated by the fact that you're their daughter, but given the severity of the injuries and the fact that you were pregnant, the DA will definitely pursue it. Within days, the police arrested Vanessa at her home. The news spread through our extended family like wildfire. My phone started ringing constantly with calls from aunts, uncles, and cousins who'd heard various versions of what happened. My Aunt Lorraine was the first to reach out with support. I never believed you stole that money, she said. Constance was so insistent about it, so aggressive about turning everyone against you. It felt wrong. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. I did, to Gerald privately. He wouldn't listen. He said Vanessa had proof, and that was enough for him. I'm so sorry I didn't do more. The criminal charges against Vanessa moved forward quickly. The evidence was overwhelming, the security footage, the computer logs, the offshore account trail. Her attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but Douglas advised me to reject it. Let her face a jury, he said. Let everyone see what she did. The trial was scheduled for 3 months later, but we didn't wait to file the civil suits. Douglas helped me sue Vanessa for the assault, fraud, and emotional distress. We also sued my parents for assault and the injuries I'd sustained. Gerald tried to call me after the lawsuits were filed. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was gruff, uncomfortable. We need to talk about this situation, he said. Not quite an apology. Things got out of hand. Maybe we can work something out without involving lawyers and courts.
Teddy's thoughts. Oh, hell no. Just reading this makes my blood boil. Your own sister sneaks into your house, steals $160,000 and frames you, and your parents literally beat you while pregnant. Like, what kind of horror show is that? And yet, you survive, give birth, and go full detective, watching the security footage, tracing the money, exposing her. This is next-level badass justice. Everyone watching this would lose it. Rage, shock, and total respect for your survival and clever revenge. You didn't just fight back, you wiped the slate clean legally and morally. Absolute legend energy.
Call me back. I deleted the message without responding. Constance sent a text. You're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding. Think about what you're doing to your daughters. Do you want them growing up without grandparents? I blocked her number. News of Vanessa's arrest spread through our family network like poison. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, everyone suddenly having opinions about the situation. My cousin Rebecca sent a long text about how families should handle problems privately, how involving the police was extreme. I deleted it without responding. Uncle Kenneth called to say he'd heard both sides and thought maybe everyone just needed to calm down and talk things through. I blocked his number. But some family members surprised me. My cousin James, whom I'd always considered Vanessa's friend, sent a simple message. I always knew something was off about her. I'm sorry I didn't see this coming. Let me know if you need anything. Aunt Lorraine, my mother's younger sister, visited the house 2 weeks after Vanessa's arrest, bringing a casserole and an apology. I should have pushed back harder when Constance was spreading that story about you stealing, she said, her eyes red from crying. I knew in my gut it wasn't true, but I didn't want to cause family drama. I'm so ashamed. I accepted her apology, but the hurt remained. How many people had doubted the accusation but stayed silent? How many had chosen family harmony over defending me? The twins came home from the NICU on a Tuesday afternoon, weighing just over 5 pounds each. Tyler and I had taken multiple classes on caring for premature infants, learning about feeding schedules and monitoring their breathing. The nurses had prepared us thoroughly, but actually bringing them home felt terrifying. That first night, I barely slept. I kept checking their breathing, watching their tiny chests rise and fall, convinced that if I looked away for even a moment, something terrible would happen. The trauma of nearly losing them hadn't faded. If anything, having them home made me more acutely aware of how close we'd come to tragedy. During one of those late-night feeding sessions, with Luna nursing drowsily and Aria already asleep in her bassinet, I found myself thinking about Vanessa. We'd been close once, before the competition started, before the jealousy took root. I remembered being 7 years old, holding her hand on the first day of school, believing she'd always protect me. The memory made me angry. That little girl who trusted her big sister deserved better than what Vanessa had become. The investigation into the stolen money moved methodically. Douglas's forensics expert, a man named Raymond Chen, spent 3 days examining my computer and home network. He was thorough to the point of obsession, checking every log file, every access point, every possible entry vector. Your sister wasn't sophisticated about covering her tracks, Raymond explained during a meeting at Douglas's office. She relied entirely on the physical location to incriminate you. Look at this. He pulled up a detailed timeline on his laptop. The first transfer occurred on March 15th at 2:47 p.m. Your security footage shows Vanessa entering your house at 2:30 p.m. and leaving at 3:15 p.m. The second transfer was March 22nd at 1:18 p.m. She entered at 1 o'clock p.m. and left at 1:45 p.m. The third and final transfer was March 29th at 3:52 p.m., and she was in your house from 3:30 p.m. to 4:20 p.m. She was that precise about it. Tyler asked, incredulous. She thought she was being clever, Raymond said. By spreading the transfers over multiple visits, she probably believed it would look less suspicious than one large withdrawal. But it actually gave us more evidence, 3 separate instances of her presence correlating with unauthorized access. Douglas added, the offshore account receiving the money is registered in the Cayman Islands under a shell company called Meridian Holdings. The company is legally owned by Vanessa's husband, but the paperwork shows her signature on multiple corporate documents as a co-director. They set up the company 6 months ago, right around the time his business started failing. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Vanessa and her husband had been planning this for months, maybe longer. They decided that stealing from Gerald and framing me was their solution to financial problems. Can we prove all of this in court? I asked. Absolutely, Douglas said. Between the security footage, the computer forensics, the financial trail, and the timeline correlation, this is one of the strongest cases I've worked on. The prosecutor is going to love this. But proving Vanessa's guilt was only part of what I wanted. I needed everyone who'd believed her lies to see the truth. I needed public vindication, not just legal victory. The criminal trial against Vanessa began on a cold morning in October. The courtroom was packed with family members, most of them still unsure what to believe. I sat in the front row with Tyler, Aria and Luna at home with a nanny, and watched as my sister was let in. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Her expensive clothes and perfect hair couldn't hide the fear in her eyes when she glanced at the prosecutor's table, stacked high with evidence. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. They showed the security footage of Vanessa entering my house. They presented the computer forensics showing the transfers made from my IP address during her visits. They traced the money from Gerald's account to the offshore account to Vanessa's shell company. Her defense attorney tried to argue that someone else could have used her shell company, that the footage didn't prove she accessed the computer, that it was all circumstantial. But the evidence was too strong. When I was called to testify, I walked to the stand with my head high. The scars on my face had faded but were still visible, thin white lines that would never fully disappear. The prosecutor had me describe the evening at my parents' house in detail. I spoke clearly, methodically, watching the jury's faces as I explained how my own sister had slammed my head into a mirror, how my mother had kicked my pregnant stomach, how my father had dragged me through broken glass and thrown me onto the street, Several jurors looked visibly upset. One older woman had tears in her eyes. "Why do you think your sister did this?" The prosecutor asked. "She needed money and wanted me out of the family," I said simply. "She accomplished both goals, or thought she did." Vanessa's attorney tried to discredit me during cross-examination, suggesting I'd fabricated my injuries or exaggerated the assault. But the medical records spoke for themselves. Photographs of my lacerated face and scalp, documentation of the premature labor, evidence of the bruising on my ribs and stomach. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they returned, the 4 women stood and read the verdict with a steady voice. On the count of grand theft, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of assault, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. Vanessa's face crumpled. Her husband, sitting behind her, dropped his head into his hands. From across the courtroom, I could see Constance and Gerald, their expressions stunned. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Douglas leaned over and whispered, "Given the amount stolen and the violence involved, she's looking at significant prison time." True to his prediction, Vanessa was sentenced to 8 years in state prison. The judge's words during sentencing were scathing. "You didn't just steal money," the judge said. "You orchestrated a cruel scheme to destroy your own sister's reputation and nearly killed her and her unborn children in the process. The betrayal of family trust, combined with the violence and premeditation, warrants the maximum sentence." The civil suits moved forward next. Gerald and Constance tried to settle, offering $50,000 to make it all go away. Douglas laughed when their attorney presented the offer. "Your clients assaulted a pregnant woman so severely she went into premature labor," he said. "They're facing a jury verdict in the millions." He was right. When our civil case went to trial, the jury awarded me $1.2 million in damages, medical expenses, pain and suffering, emotional distress, and punitive damages. The judgment would be split between Vanessa and my parents based on their respective actions. Gerald and Constance had to sell their house to pay their portion. The home I'd grown up in, filled with memories both good and terrible, went on the market within a month of the verdict. They downsized to a small condo across town. But I wasn't done. Douglas helped me file a claim against Vanessa's husband's company for the stolen money that had been filtered through their shell company. That lawsuit continued for another 8 months, complicated by the offshore accounts and corporate structures. Finally, in April, we reached a settlement that recovered the full $160,000 plus interest to return to Gerald's account. The money went back to him that same week, but I made sure he knew where it came from. I had Douglas send a detailed letter explaining how I'd recovered his stolen funds, cleared my name, and brought his real thief to justice. Gerald never responded to the letter. Neither did Constance. The silence from them was absolute. The extended family fractured over the situation. About half sided with me once the truth came out, horrified by what had been done. The other half, led by my father's sister Ruth, maintained that I'd overreacted by pressing charges and suing. Family should forgive family. Aunt Ruth told me during an uncomfortable encounter at a cousin's wedding. What Vanessa did was wrong, but sending her to prison, making your parents lose their home, that's vindictive. I looked at her calmly. They nearly killed my daughters before they were even born. Vanessa stole $160,000 and framed me for it. My mother kicked me in my pregnant stomach. My father dragged me through broken glass. What part of that deserves forgiveness? She had no answer to that. Life moved forward. Aria and Luna grew into bright, energetic toddlers with no memory of the trauma surrounding their birth. Tyler and I built a beautiful life together, one free from the toxicity of my biological family. I'd see Gerald and Constance occasionally around town. They aged dramatically, their faces lined with bitterness and regret. Sometimes Gerald would look like he wanted to approach me, to say something, but he never did. Constance would turn away entirely, pretending she didn't see me. Vanessa's release date was still years away. I'd heard through family gossip that her husband had divorced her and moved out of state with their children. She'd lost everything: her freedom, her family, her reputation. On the twins' 5th birthday, we threw a big party in our backyard. Friends filled the space, their laughter and joy a stark contrast to the darkness of that night at my parents' house. Watching Aria and Luna run around with their friends, their faces bright with happiness, I felt the last piece of anger finally release from my chest. I'd kept my promise. I'd come back, and they'd all regretted what they did. But more importantly, I'd built something better than revenge. I'd built a life filled with people who actually loved and valued me. Tyler came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. What are you thinking about? How far we've come, I said, leaning back against him. How different things could have been. No regrets. He asked. I watched our daughters, healthy and whole, laughing with their friends. I thought about the justice we'd fought for and won. I considered the family members who'd stood by us, and the ones who'd revealed their true characters. Not a single one, I said. The best revenge hadn't been the prison sentence, or the lawsuit victories, or the public vindication, though all of those had mattered. The best revenge was simply this: living well, loving fully, and refusing to let their cruelty define my story. I'd survived. My daughters had survived. And we'd built something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. That was enough.